So, as I said, we'll call this meeting back into session. We were just in recess after an executive session that began at 6 o'clock. There was matters that, in the opinion of the chair, would not be beneficial to the town if we were to discuss them in an open meeting, relative to collective bargaining and a contract. So before we go on with the rest of our agenda, I'll ask everyone to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I know the first item in the agenda is a joint hearing, and before we ask our colleagues to come up, I wanted to ask for their indulgence for a moment to take the second item on the agenda, labeled 3, actually. So we've had, as it seems frequently lately, many of our staff members within the community have been recognized by their peers and their professional organizations, and we have 2 examples of that tonight. So we have our assistant town manager, Steve Sadwick, was named as the planning director of the year, and our planner, conservation planner, Kyle Boyd, was also named as the 2016 Planner Award. So the board put together a citation that I'll read in each case, and we just want to recognize the outstanding work that these 2 individuals do as an example of all of the staff members that we have working for our community. So I'll read the citation and then ask them individually to come up. So first, be it hereby known to all that the members of the Tewksbury Board of Selectmen join your community, friends, and family in congratulating Stephen Sadwick, AICP, Assistant Town Manager, for being awarded the Massachusetts Association of Planning Directors 2016 Planning Director of the Year Award, honoring his outstanding work as a planning director during his successful career. We wish you continued health and success, given this 20th day of December 2016, and it is signed by all of my colleagues and myself. And so actually, if Mr. Sadwick. And similarly, be it hereby known to all that the members of the Tewksbury Board of Selectmen join your community, friends, and family in congratulating Kyle Boyd, AICP, for being awarded the American Planning Association's 2016 Young Planner Award, honoring his outstanding work in his early planning career. We wish you continued health and success, given this 20th day of December 2016. Again, signed by all of my colleagues here on the board. And I'll ask one more indulgence for 2 minutes for us to get a quick picture with the 2 award winners so we can share in their glory. Maybe over here on the side. Does anybody have a camera?
Phone.
Yeah. It looks like
Who's taking a picture?
No, we haven't requested it.
Yeah, please hold the side to the
Camera right there.
Nobody can be behind Kyle.
Chairman, if I can just offer a comment.
Please, Mr.
I'm
Johnson.
beginning to think we need to question the town manager's management skills, because we're we're now taking the planner of the year out of planning.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just quickly, the two of them were honored by the Planning Association, the American the Massachusetts chapter of the American Planning Association, and mostly for the great work that they do in their field, but also for their contribution within their association, because they're both very active. Steve served as president. Kyle works hard, if not formed the Young Planners Association within the association. So they were recognized for that effort, but I don't think anybody realizes, except people in this community as well as this board, how diverse they are in their skills. And Steve is not the assistant town manager by luck. He is the assistant town manager because of what he brought to the table and all of his skills, his dedication to this community. He's one of the longest-serving department heads, and because I had a lot of trust and faith that not only would he be a good assistant town manager, but a future town manager. So what they've done for this community, we can spend all night talking about. Kyle, since he's been here in the short time, I say short time, it's come on 5 years now, we knew when we interviewed him we were getting a quality employee. And not only does he do conservation work and now working on planning, but he'll do anything you ask him to do. He's working on green communities, as Steve has. We wouldn't be a green community without Steve. He's working on beaver dam control. He's working on, today, I'm going to say this, Kyle, you're going to be embarrassed, but he dressed up as an elf today, a large elf, and he
Quite an elf.
delivered gifts to elderly who could not get out of their house, and Christmas presents today. So he does just about anything he's asked. He's a great team player. They're both great team players, and I'm fortunate to have them. They make me look good. So I appreciate all the work that they do. So
Thank
that's
you.
it.
Well said. Well said. Okay. Now we'll look at go back one item back up on the agenda, and at this point I'll ask our colleagues in the Board of Health to come and join us and grab a chair up here. We're going to chase Richard and others from the table to make sure we have enough chairs for the 4 members of the Board of Health. And we'll begin this joint session to consider chairs there. Maybe just grab one of the red chairs. Should be enough for you, I think. Thank you. All right, so we have tonight we have the duty of serving in the interest of the public here, and essentially replacing the voters to select or elect a new member of the Board of Health. The way this process has worked, and we've done this process a few other times in recent time, is that the Board of Health indicated that they'd like to participate in this, and then we have a 9-member joint meeting to determine who should be the next member that will serve through April 1st, or at least until there's whoever their successor, or if they were to run for election at the April ballot, which would be on April 1st. So we have 3 candidates in front of us. Each of the members have received applications for those 3 members, and I'm going to ask for a motion to support the process. How we've talked about this before, but I'd like it to be in the record that we're all agreed as far as how this process will run, and what the process we've done in the past and how we've talked about it for this particular issue is to ask each of the 3 candidates to come to the microphone, or maybe to the table here where the microphone works, give us about a 5-minute summary as to why they're interested in this position and why they think they would be a good member of the Board of Health. They would each in turn do that, and then we will have a roll call vote of the 9 members in front of you. We'll, out of courtesy, we'll have our colleagues from the Board of Health go first. As soon as a candidate gets 5 votes, they are the new member of the Board of Health. Given that we have 3 candidates, if in a 1 round of voting we have nobody reaches that 5, if there's somebody who has the lowest number, we will remove that person from consideration and then vote on the 2 remaining. If there are 2 that are tied, we'll just do it again with the 3 votes, if that makes sense. Does that? And I'll ask for that in the form of a motion if somebody wants to support that process or make a suggestion of any changes to that effect.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to support the process as stated. I don't think I could restate it, but I'll...
So I have a motion.
I second that motion.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. That's 9-0 to my take. Okay, so with that, I'm going to just take them in the order that they are on our applications here. And so the first in our packet is Ms. Kylie Parada. So if I can ask you to just come to the table, and the floor is yours for the next 5 minutes or so.
Hi, like said before, my name is Kylie Parada. I moved to Tewksbury about 3 years ago. I have been a registered nurse since 2011. I have my bachelor's degree from Salem State. I also have 2 other degrees from Middlesex Community College, one in biology, one in psychology. I am an active member of the Medical Reserve Corps. I, right now, work in a VNA, so I see patients out in the community. I have a background in hospice, psych, and medical with a lot of wound care. My MRC membership has given me a lot of insight as to like evacuation plans and emergency planning. I became a new mother. I have a 3-month-old at home, so I'm fully vested in the community, and that's why I'm applying, is just to become more of an active member. Basically, I didn't really need 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. So the next candidate is Mr. Robert Scarano.
Good evening, folks. My name is Robert Scarano. I'm an attorney here in Tewksbury. I am interested in serving on the Board of Health, as was demonstrated last year when I ran an unsuccessful campaign for appointment to the Board of Health. I did lose by a couple of votes, and my interest is still to serve the public, as now I have a lot more time as my children reach the age of college and seem to have moved out and now just appear on the weekends occasionally. It allows me a little more time to dedicate myself to public service. I will tell you a little about myself. I've been a coach in many different sports and serving the public for many years, both in Wilmington and Tewksbury. Over 35 years I've been doing that. I did serve on the Council of Aging here in Tewksbury and on the building committee for the Senior Center. My interest is to assist the board in their endeavors in actually reviewing the local regulations, which I think is imperative, the protection of the health in the community. I also see many challenges ahead with younger people, including the college crowd, that I see at risk. Would like to reach out and be more proactive in seeking their input in what's happening in the community. As you can see, there are a number of challenges resting with the community. Mumps, there's other communicable diseases, I think, that need to be looked at and monitored very carefully, including the immunization of children. But I do look forward to your consideration this evening. I gave you a brief summary of my experience, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. All right, and then next candidate is Mr. Joseph Cabuccio.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Cabuccio. Met a few of you before, time and time. I signed up and submitted an application just to try to serve a little more, get a little more involved into the town than I already am. Just a few months ago, I was appointed to the events committee. Trying to find a way to get a little more involved. I have a 5-year-old daughter that just started kindergarten this year. So my interest is within the school system, you know, and obviously Board of Health, safety, stuff like that. You know, I'd like to see where I can help out for some of the schools. I know some of them, a few of them might be built in a couple of years, or at least that was some of the talk about it. So I'd like to see where I can be some assistance. I've been a plumber for 12 years now, so, you know, I've done code and stuff like that, revolving potable water, sanitary. I know one of the things that are coming up right now is, you know, grease traps and saving some of the sewer, new sewer that we have coming in. So if I can take some of my, you know, my knowledge on plumbing codes and stuff like that and apply it to, you know, what we should be doing to preserve, and I'd like to be a part of that. I also give a lot to the community as well, as far as just on a fundraiser point. I was just involved with the police department with their Halloween thing, their Halloween event, a DJ. So yeah, basically anything I can kind of get involved in. I saw this opportunity, so why not? I've never ran for an elected position before. I figured this might even be a good time to be able to get in, you know, learn, you know, a lot of, you know, the politics on that, and be able to, you know, possibly run for, you know, the next term, and get some insight on that. Something I'm looking forward to doing if I get elected, or even, you know, that's about it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
So I'll first just say that thank you to all 3 candidates for putting your name out there. That's often the hardest thing, to get qualified people to step forward to be willing to serve. And before we start the vote, I'd like to offer the chair of Board of Health, if you have any comments or about the process, or have any commentary generally about where we are.
No, I think just to reiterate, I think I mentioned to all 3 of you that I was once in your shoes, having come before the board for one of these fill the vacancy type positions, and again, regardless of what the outcome is tonight, unfortunately we can only pick one person. There are 3 very good candidates here tonight, so I would definitely encourage you folks to consider running in April for the election, because partly because I like to be able to have the rest of the town see that we have citizens willing to step forward, and citizens that are well qualified and are looking at ways of giving back to the town. So for that, I thank you very much for just stepping forward, for coming here tonight. And I think as we talk, and you've had your meetings, we're all in complete agreement with the process for doing this, and let the best person win tonight.
All right. Okay, with that, I'll just note for the public and for the press that are here, we are not making our vote entirely based on the few minutes that each candidate gave here at the microphone. Each filled out a 4-page application indicating their previous experience and sort of allowing us to get through that sort of detail without having to do all of that in a meeting that would then go on for hours, that would not necessarily be productive. So, with that being said, I'm going to just do a roll call vote. Please just indicate the candidate you wish to vote for. So I'll start with our members of the Board of Health. Mr. Ferdinand.
Ms. Parada.
Mr. Bichetti.
Mr. Scarano.
Mr. Rue.
Mr. Scarano.
Mr. Berry.
Mr. Scarano?
Mr. Kratman.
Mr. Kavucha.
Mrs. Stronach.
Mr. Scarano.
Mr. Gay.
Mr. Kavucha.
Mr. Johnson.
To make this interesting, and I'll explain my position on this. This is a short-term situation. We get to put the decision back in the hands of the voters on April 1st, as you mentioned. We unfortunately lost a member of the Board of Health to, I guess, retirement or resignation, who was a nurse. And from the vantage point that I sit, while I completely agree with the Board of Health Chairman's commentary that I think we have three very highly skilled and appropriate applicants here, my perspective would be to try to maintain the status quo for the next 3 or 4 months and let the voters decide the appropriate skill set that they want. So in that context, my inclination is to support Ms. Parada because of her background in nursing.
Can I second that? Oh, wait a minute, I already did.
And I will also vote for Ms. Parada. That gets us to a point where we have, by my count, 4 votes for Mr. Scarano. We have 3 votes for Ms. Parada and 2 votes for Mr. Cabuccio. Based on the process we agreed to, Mr. Cabuccio, nobody received 5 votes, so we'll go to a second round of voting. And because Mr. Cabuccio received only 2 votes, he will be removed from consideration. And we'll now do another roll call vote, considering either Mr. Scarano or Ms. Parada. Everybody all set with that?
Yeah.
So we'll start again. Mr. Ferdinand.
Ms. Parada.
Mr. Bichetti.
Mr. Scarano.
Mr. Rue.
Mr. Scarano, but could I elaborate on that a little
Okay,
bit, as
please.
Mr. Johnson did with
Yes,
his
please.
candidate? Mr. Scarano's owned a business in town here that was, basically, he has experience in food prep. He has experience, he's safe serve and serve safe, and he's got all kinds of experiences with tobacco control, alcohol. He was a recipient of one of our regulations put down on the dumpster ordinance that we put through in the town, and he has a tremendous amount of, I think we have a tremendous opportunity here in the next 3 months to get a lot of mileage out of a guy that I believe can hit the road running. I'm not into this, 3 months, let's try something. I know him, I know what he can do, and I would strongly suggest that we support Bob Scarano.
Okay. Mr. Berry.
Mr. Scarano as well.
Mr. Kratman.
Mr. Scarano.
Mrs. Stronach.
Mr. Scarano.
Mr. Gay.
Ms. Parada.
Mr. Johnson.
Ms. Parada.
And I will also vote for Ms. Parada again. However, by my count, Mr. Scarano received 5 votes, and as such, is elected our new member of the Board of Health. So I will, first of all, thank my colleagues for coming in tonight and congratulate Mr. Scarano and encourage Mrs. Parada to continue to step forward, and Mr. Cabuccio. We appreciate the time and the effort you did to come forward. And I will ask if there's any other commentary from the assembled group before we take a recess.
There's one comment I'd just like to make.
Please,
That
Mr.
is,
Berry.
For the 2 candidates that didn't get selected tonight, we have an organization called Tewksbury Cares, which is an offshoot of the Board of Health. And it's a nonprofit that is really helping, or we're trying to get it revitalized, and we're starting getting some community members. Mr. Ferdinand is on the board of it. They're always looking for members, whether you have medical background or not medical background, because there are a lot of drug issues facing this town. And that group could definitely use some more people helping them. So don't be put off by tonight's vote. We have the April election, but also look at Tewksbury Cares is another way that you can start giving back to the community right away, if you're interested. And we can, Mr. Ferdinand can get you the information on that.
All right, well, again, thank you for the candidates for coming out. Thank you to our colleagues on the Board of Health for taking some time tonight. I know we'll just take a brief, like 2-minute recess just to get reorganized up here. Thank you. Okay, so we have one more item to take care of relative to this. The term that was vacated by the resignation was actually not set to expire until April of 2018. And so the, Mr. Scarano, who we just elected, will only serve out through April 1st, and at that point, the voters will make a determination as to who should fill out that final year. So there will essentially be 2 positions on the Board of Health up for election this spring. So we need to, in order for that to happen, as a board, we need to vote to instruct or ask the town clerk to put this on the ballot, this
Yes.
one
Instruct the
term.
town clerk to put it on the ballot.
Do we have any specific language that we need to do, or?
No, just have the, just vote to include the seat
The unexpired.
vacated by
Kathleen
Kathy
Brothers.
Brothers
Okay.
to be on the ballot for the local election 2017.
To serve out a single one-year.
Single one-year
Term.
term, yes.
Okay, so I will entertain any motions relative to that.
I'll make a motion to instruct the clerk to put the seat vacated by Kathleen Brothers on the April 1st, 2017 ballot.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. It's unanimous. Okay, next item on our agenda is the resident portion. I'll ask if there's any residents to come to the table. Seeing none, we will move on to the next item. We have in front of us again the list of proposed meeting dates for the Board of Selectmen for all of 2017. I believe everybody's had a chance to review those, and we've addressed any issues relative to April vacations and school vacations, et cetera. So I will ask for, if there's no discussion, or if there's any discussion, and then if not, a motion relative to setting these dates.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the courtesy of tabling this at the last meeting. I did review it, as you know, and I'm satisfied with these dates. I'd make a motion at this time to adopt this schedule as our tentative meeting schedule for 2017.
Okay, I have a
I'll
motion
second.
and a second to adopt this schedule for our 2017 meetings. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. Okay, so the next item is, my understanding is is a result of the Municipal Modernization Act. It requires us to appoint record access officers. And
Yeah.
so, Mr. Montour, if you want to clarify what we're considering?
Actually, the public records law is changing January 1st, 2017, and among the many changes that are being made to the public records law, one of them has to do with the appointment of records access officers being appointed. And I have appointed department heads, including the school superintendent, to be record access officers for their departments. And these officers are responsible for overseeing public records requests when they come in for their particular department, and ensuring that the requests are documented, that the requests are fulfilled in a timely manner, dealing with any issues that may arise from the records possibly not being public for one reason or another, the need for time extensions, the need for determining and finalizing the costs of those records. So it's a fair amount of responsibility for the records officers. So each department head was appointed, and we had training today by town council. I'm sure we'll have to go through more training. We need to make improvements to our website. We need to make improvements to forms and documentation, which we'll do over the next 6 months. We have till July 1 to provide regulations and make improvements to the website. But I couldn't appoint myself as a records access officer, so that's your job. So I'd ask the board to appoint me as a records access officer, and I'll join the department heads in helping oversee the request for public records.
Okay, so we have a request for an appointment of Mr. Montori to be our public records officer.
Well, I will make that motion, as I am the public records officer for my district with the work DOT, so I know how fun the job is. So I will make the motion to appoint Mr. Montori as our public records officer.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Richard Montori as our record access officer for public records requests. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. Okay. The next item, we have a question about an open space tax abatement.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On October 5th, 2016, Ginsburg, Mark P. and Sons deeded, LLC deeded a parcel to the town as open space. It's map 32, lot 88. What this request is doing is asking the board to abate the taxes on that property now that it's been deeded to the town as open space, and the abatement amount is $395.47.
And I see here in the request that it actually has to be in writing, so we'll actually, any motion relative to this would be to,
We'll send a letter to the assessors.
in writing, authorize that abatement.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have a motion relative to that, or any discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the abatement for the amount of $395.47.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and can I just ask to clarify that this will be made in writing to the chief assessor?
Yes, that'll be made in writing to the chief assessor.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to notify the chief assessor that the Board of Selectmen accept the tax abatement as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes,
as a
sir.
point of clarification, I would assume that letter will specify the dates of October 5, 2016 through June 30,
Yes.
2017.
Yeah, as presented, I would agree that that should include those dates and that number.
Thank you.
395.47. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the town manager's favorite time of year.
Do I have to stay?
Yes, you do. So before we get started with this process, I'll just open it by reminding everybody the sort of reason what we're doing. The town manager is in his closing in on the end of his first year of a 3-year contract, which represents his 7th year of service, if I did the math right. Seems like only yesterday, I'm sure. As part of that contract, we're, as a board, required to provide first an indication that we hope that he will continue to serve. And in part of our executive session did vote, or actually took no action to change that, and all were very happy to continue in that role. And then the second is to provide a review based on his performance. We have a form that we've used over the past few years, and I'll in a moment ask each of my colleagues to go over those areas individually in their individual reviews of the town manager, and then compile those together in the minutes of our meeting. Will represent the written review, annual review for the town manager. And then the final part of this process is that given that the town manager's contract is off-cycle with our normal budget process, we at this point have to set a number as a placeholder in the budget, so that should the money be approved, should the funds be approved at our May town meeting, we then have the funds set aside to compensate, to provide any increase in the salary for the town manager going forward, starting July 1 in the new fiscal year. Again, the board considered that question again in executive session. The decision was to, similar that we did a few years ago with all of our non-union employees, where we had a consultant review all of the positions within our community and come up with essentially a market rate for those positions. And then we went through a process that was then validated at town meeting to bring all of our staff, non-union staff, into agreement with that market rate in the range of 10%. So some people got larger raises than others to sort of bring them all together. And our goal here would to be considering that as well for now for the town manager, that we have not done a similar review in the last 7 years. And at the time that the manager was hired and brought aboard, there was a review done, but it has been 7 years, and certainly the market could have changed in that time frame. So my colleagues voted to ask me as the chair to seek out that process, to try to go through that process of getting, or at least assessing how much a consultant would cost, and then putting forward a study on the town manager's salary and where we should be relative to that. However, in the meantime, we need to have a number to instruct the town manager going forward into the budget process, as that's kicking off now, and with the Finance Committee and others, and he needs to have a number to set aside. And again, the board voted to set aside a maximum number based on that market study that we could grant of $20,000 as a maximum number. Now, I will reiterate, that's a maximum number. We don't, given the time of year where we are and the budget process doesn't conclude until May, we want to give ourselves enough room to adjust the compensation to be within that market value. The number could be anywhere from the sort of standard 2% sort of range that we have been doing over the years to that full $20,000 amount. But without having the study in place, it's hard to set that number, so we gave ourselves a lot of room. And we will revisit that number once we have that information in front of us. And that's was the decision of the board in the executive session. So with that, actually, so we took a vote to to instruct the town manager to put aside $20,000 in the budget for that purpose. Again, understanding that that's a maximum number. It's a placeholder, subject to the eventual wage study that we hope to have. Okay. With that, we now will enter the process of doing the town manager's performance review.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I may, I don't mean to get you off track.
Not at all.
Before we go to the review portion, I, for one, would find it helpful if we asked the town manager to review his goals that he previously had set out last year, because we're obviously in some ways grading against those. And then I know we've asked him to speak to his looking forward goals
thank you.
as well.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Before we comment on his performance.
Yes, thank you. I was getting ahead of myself, so I will turn it over to Mr. Montori on the review of those goals.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Starting off, I gave the board two documents. One is a progress report on the goals for FY16, which was the last 6 months of the previous fiscal year, since we do this review somewhat mid-year, that it spans 2 fiscal years, and how they progressed into FY17 and how they'll continue as we finish FY17. And then the second document is a list of goals for FY17, the remainder of FY17 and for FY18. In regard to the 16 and 17 progress, the first goal I had was continuing capital projects and improved planning, which really should just state capital projects and improved planning, because that's something that's done every year. The first, within that goal, the first task was the completion of the water treatment plant upgrades, and that project is ongoing, and we're expecting completion of that project per the contract to be May 30th, 2017. The next was to complete a fence installation for Livingston Street Recreation Project, and that was completed over the summer. All new fencing around the ball fields down at Livingston Street. The third was to develop a long-range plan for recreation field maintenance. Unfortunately, that's not something that has not been started yet, but now that we have a new facilities manager, that's something I'll work with him on. The fourth is to secure funding to design and build a new center fire station. The plan for the remainder of this year is to seek funding through a debt exclusion at the upcoming local election and May town meeting to design and start building a new Center Fire Station. I had the same task for securing funding and improvements for the DPW facility. And again, similar to the fire station, is to plan and seek funding through the debt exclusion at the April local election and May town meeting. And then the third, again, similar to the previous two, was to secure funding for improvements to the town center. The plan, again, is to seek through a debt exclusion funding at the April election and May town meeting. One item that's not on here yet that you'll see is I added to the goals and objectives for FY17 and 18 is the elementary school project. And it has started, so it will be something that I'll be working on through the remainder of this year and then into next year, but I'll get to that shortly. The second goal is to develop new and improved updates to policies, procedures, and bylaws. The first task was to develop policies to assist the Board of Selectmen. I have drafted those policies, procedures, and regulations. They are with Senior Town Council for review right now. There are over 20-some-odd new policies and regulations that I think will be helpful to all of us. Once Senior Town Council finishes review, I'll get those to the board and hopefully complete those in the next couple of months. The second was to review and update the town bylaws and recommend changes. Over the last couple of town meetings, I recommended changes, some successful, some not, but I think in the future, I would like to present to the committee, to the board, forming a committee with a formal structure to undertake the review of the town bylaws. It's long overdue. And I think there are individuals out there who will be interested in getting on that committee to review the town bylaws. The third goal for this fiscal year, remaining of this fiscal year, was to continue working on land transfers for the Commonwealth. We've made no progress on the cemetery land transfer. We're still stuck on the amount of money that the land is valued at compared to what we have appropriated or what we have available. And we are still stuck on the value of land, agricultural land that we're supposed to restore for the Commonwealth. So that's not making any progress. The second item under this was the working with DCAM and the delegation to finalize the transfer of the recreation lands on Livingston Street. We needed to have a gate installed at the roadway that leads to the cemetery that the state hospital has. That gate has been installed, so we expect the deed any time now for the parcel. We still need to finalize some work at the cemetery that the state has required. We went out to bid for that work, but the project came in well above our budget. So I'd like to meet with the state hospital representatives to discuss the scope of the work, and we'll rebid it to see if we can get better pricing. So that project should be done over the next few months. And then finally, as I always have for a goal, is the budget. This year, one of the goals was to fund a facilities manager position, which was funded and filled. Fund an assistant town manager, either through upgrade of existing personnel or new position. That was done by upgrading or promoting Steve Sadwick. Increased staffing at the DPW was another goal within the budget. We accomplished that by adding 2 positions in the FY17 budget. Another goal was to open the library on Sundays, which we again did in the FY17 budget. That started in September. And then increasing staffing in the Council on Aging Senior Center to provide services to the seniors, and we did that by funding an outreach coordinator within the budget, a full-time outreach coordinator within the budget. And also, because we have taken some pressure off of the grants that they receive, or the formula grant that they receive, by adding money into the budget, the director was able to hire a full-time activities coordinator and a van driver for the new van that LRTA was so gracious to provide us this year. So we met all the goals within the budget, so that worked out well. So that's the progress made on FY16 and 17, and I think we've been successful. And I say we because it's truly a team effort amongst this board, the other boards such as the Finance Committee, and a terrific group of department heads and staff. Going into FY17 and 18, similar goals, and I think they're standard year to year. That's just the nature of the business. Capital projects and improvement is a goal. The tasks, again, for the remainder of this year would be to finish the water treatment plant as it's coming up on its May 30th completion date. Want to focus on a long-range plan with the facilities manager for field maintenance. As I mentioned, secure funding for the design of the center fire station, the DPW facility, and the town center, but also going into 18, after we hopefully secure funding, actually start the projects, get them bid, and complete design, and be ready for construction late sometime in FY18. The other project that will be important going into FY 17-18 will be the Regional Emergency Communications Center. We've already advertised for design of that facility to hire an architect, hopefully have an architect on board sometime in January, and see that project design completed and hopefully construction started in FY 18. And then I added a ninth task, which is to work with the school administration, the elementary school building committee, regarding the new elementary school or schools, depending on the approach that's taken. Obviously, that's one of the top priorities in the community. That will take time and effort, and looking forward to working with that group and the school administration on that effort. I know we talk a lot about the town center, the DPW facility, and the center fire station, but I don't want it to be lost that the elementary schools are a priority in this community. That will get my focus. Second, develop new and improved policies and procedures. Once the draft policies are given to the board for the board's approval, then the work will be to implement those policies and maintain them and update them and ensure that they're being followed. And then work with the board, again, as I mentioned, over the next 6 months and beyond, to develop a committee and work with that committee to develop or review the town bylaws and make any recommended changes, if any, are needed. Again, continue the land transfers with the Commonwealth. We need to finalize, we need to do something with the cemetery. It's something that's been going on prior to me getting here, being appointed as town manager. We need to figure out how we can secure that land transfer, because the cemetery corporation is going to run out of land, and we need to figure out something over the next 6 months to a year. So that's still on my radar screen, as well as not only getting the deed for the recreation fields at Livingston, but also to get the work started on rehabilitating the state hospital cemetery and ensuring that that stays in its proper condition and maintenance going into FY18 and beyond. Because it's not just a one-time project. We have to maintain it constantly, continuously after that. And then regarding the budget, going into FY18, as I've mentioned before, the process has started. I've met with most of the departments on their budgets. We're moving along. We still have a lot of work to do. But one of the things I want to do is to develop a facilities department and budget for the facilities manager. Since we hired the new facilities manager, his salary has been in the town manager's budget, but there's really no home and budget for the department head. What I'd like to do is start consolidating some of the budgets that he would be responsible for, such as the parks staff, expenses that he has regarding different departments. My thinking right now is to change the parks department budget into a facilities department budget and just house a lot of those expenses within that budget. So I'd like to do that. My goal is to do that before the budget process ends. I'd also like to start developing a 5-year plan with the facilities department and the facilities manager. And when we look at that plan, it's not really the building of new buildings. So it's not adding the center fire station or the DPW facility to that capital budget. It's the ongoing maintenance of the current facilities. How are we going to maintain the police department, which is coming up on 20 years old? How are we going to maintain the library, the senior center, so they don't get to the point that that this building got to, that we have to do a major renovation? So those are the type of capital improvements I want to look at doing with the facilities manager. The library needs new carpet, the police station may need new carpet, new painting, things like that. Start addressing that. The outlying fire stations. So that's a development of a 5-year plan for facilities. I'd also like to look at consolidating different line items within the budget. In meeting with the new finance director and going through the budget process so far, we have a lot of line items that aren't needed within the budget, first of all, that we can start eliminating. Those are minor items that they're not financial in nature, but it's just more efficiency in the budget process. But also I want to start looking at consolidating the actual budgets such as utilities. And the best example, and it's not a large amount of money, but the best example is Janine Tambolian in the town manager's office pays the phone bill for all the departments, whether it's Verizon or whether it's cell phones. The way she does it right now, she has to charge each department an amount of money. And there are many times that we don't have enough money to pay for the bills, and we're scrambling to figure out where to pull the money from. I'd like to consolidate all of that into the town manager's budget, so she has her own budget. She can manage the amount of money that is budgeted each year to ensure that we have enough in that line item, to make sure the bills are paid on time, that we're not waiting for transfers for different line items in different departments. If possible, I'd like to do that with our gas and electric also. Right now, every department pays for their own electricity and pays for their own gas. And if possible, I'd like to consolidate that into one person paying those bills to ensure that we're paying the right amount each month, to make sure that we're not getting late charges or forgetting any bills. So I think it will make it more efficient if we do that. So those are the kind of things I'm thinking about when I talk about consolidating budget line items for control and spending. And then finally, as I've mentioned previously, in preparing the FY18 budget, I want to move cautiously and ensure that we budget both for the short term but also for the long term, because I am concerned about the state budget moving forward, and I'm concerned about what the federal budget might do in regards to impacts to local governments. Everything may be fine, and we may not have any issues, but I just want to be more cautious than I normally am when I move forward with the budget, to ensure that we don't put ourselves into any financial position that could cause us problems in the future. So that's a goal as I develop the FY18 budget. I'm not sitting here saying the sky is falling by any means, but I just want to make sure, with all the reports we hear on the state budget, the state revenues, the 9C cuts that happened recently, that didn't really impact us greatly, that we could see more cuts throughout this fiscal year, but we could see changes in financial impacts to the local governments next year. So I want to be cautious. And with the new president, Congress coming on board, and the federal government, things could impact us, and I just want to take the time to understand what that is, if any. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. First, I'll ask if there's any questions or comments relative to the goals and objectives that were just presented.
I have no comments.
I just have one question myself. When you're talking about consolidating line items within the budget, have you considered whether those would fall under that facilities budget, so that the facilities manager might have a sense that if one building is burning a lot of gas or electricity, that there might be some maintenance issue that they might pick up on?
I'm not sure I'd put it under the facilities department. I may. I haven't fully thought it through yet. Most likely would be under the town manager's budget, where the staff in the manager's office is paying those, and he's right in our office, so he would have that sense anyways. But that's a great point being brought up regarding monitoring usage for both gas and electricity. One of the things, because we're a green community and we have access to a lot of data, Kyle Boyd's kind of monitoring that along with the facilities manager, and we started looking at that this year and noticed that we had a spike in usage. And where is that coming from? We kind of narrowed that down where it was coming from. It was coming from some of the new lights that we put in, floodlights, things like that. And buildings that weren't on, like this building wasn't on board for a year. So we're doing that already, but having that into the manager's budget, it's just, the facilities manager will have access to that.
Okay, unless there's any further questions or comments? I think at that point then, we are now ready to move on to the review. So I'll turn to my right and ask Mr. Kratman to take his first go at the review.
Okay, well, I once again went through the form as we've done in the last couple of years, and the form we use is we go through a rating, and the scale goes 1 through 5, and 1 is kind of fails to meet the standard, 5 is the exceeds, does the best, and as I did my rating across, Mr. Montori got 5 across the board. I think he did a wonderful job, and once again, his managerial skills are excellent. Organizing, having everything prepared for the board, he's always prepared for us. Budget presentations and administration, 5 across that way. He's always got us prepared. He always has the budget ready for us. We get out here. Let's see, we got direction, supervision of departments. He always keeps us updated, gives us reports on how he meets and discusses with all his departments. Seems like everything's in order, and we haven't had any issues this year. Organization, relations, 5 across the board. Once again, he's always coordinating, keeping the board prepared, has everything ready for our town meetings. Community relations, once again, he got a 5, and I want to commend you for what you did this year, just having the town square meetings, having meetings with the senior center, having coffee on the common, those type of things. I think that went a long way. I talked to a bunch of residents. They were very happy. There was a couple of open town meetings that you ran. People came down, they discussed, items of concern. You've done, we've had conversations about updating the town website. It still has a way to go, but we're constantly putting more information out there, which I'm very happy about. If, there's a water main break or those type of information, we're getting it out to the public so they know to avoid certain areas. And once again, we're working on it, but it's come a long way in the last couple of years, and I think that's an excellent job you've been doing. And personal qualities, once again, I gave him a 5. In my daytime job, I cover 62 cities and towns, and I deal with town managers, reps, councilors, selectmen, everybody. And as I talk to the other cities and towns and hear the other concerns that they have going on, I feel very lucky that we're in Tewksbury, because the things that are going on in other towns, seems like there's always a problem here and there, and I haven't had any major issues that we've had in this town. Everyone that moves here it seems like we have a growing community, as we had a couple of new people that came here tonight to apply for boards. People are moving up here. They love this community, and I think it's due to the fine work you've been doing. So I think you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kratman. Mrs. Stronach.
So I really thought long and hard about this review, and I did fill out the report, and I will send it to Annette, but I have to tell you that because I only rated you a 4 in one area, and it's not really because I don't think that you exceed. I just think that we, as a community, can do better in terms of that. So I don't think that there's ever anyone that's going to exceed in terms of our community outreach and the way we're interacting. And I certainly think there's been an increase now that Town Hall is open, and I do realize that it was a little bit harder the last couple of years prior to that. So I took a little bit of a different approach in the way I viewed the review, because I think that it's important to focus on the evidence that we have in front of us. And when we talk about your managerial and your organizational skills and communicating to the board and giving your department heads direction, we see that every single week with the reports that you give to us, and labeling things as far as, taking the time afterwards after I read them and call you up and say, what about this, what about that? getting back to me as a board member so that when people come to me with concerns, that I can go back to them and address them. I know that we feel that you're approachable, but whether you like it or not, there are some residents who, you know, you're intimidating to them, and that's not such a bad thing, and I'm not suggesting that, but it's a little bit easier for them to pick up the phone because they have a personal relationship with us, and you never make me feel bad by coming up and advocating for residents on their behalf, and I want to thank you for that. So with regards to that, the one thing that I would like to focus on is the budget, and I noted this. I met with you to review your goals and then also talk to you about your goals for next year, and I was a little nervous, and I can't think of another word to express that, but nervous when you say that you're cautious on the budget. I know that you're very conservative to begin with, so I worry about it being a little bit more extreme, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I know that you've already asked your department heads to get their budget in December 13th, and one of the things that I continue to get people to understand is that you really look at the budget as a year-long process. And so when you're giving us our budget and we're voting on that in May, and then we come back in October, and we've had a lot of discussion about this, and there's other priorities, I would like to see those priorities kind of so that there's somewhat of a preview in the May thing. I think you do an excellent job at the budget, but I still think that the budget is a forecast, and people kind of think of it as something that's a little bit more stationary in May. And I think we need to kind of broaden that so that people understand that May and October are very, very linked. And you have educated me in that process, but I think we still need to educate our residents. And to Mark's point, that seeing the amount of new people that are coming and looking at committees this time, I think that's a true testament to your work and the way that the professionalism that you bring to the town hall in general. And I just wanted to say that. So while I gave you a rating, I really want to kind of talk about the work that you've done in the, what I consider a tribute to our community. The one thing that I would like to just say is when we're talking about your goals for this year, while all these things are linked to economic development, there's no one thing that says economic development. And if we talk to residents, their main thing is, you know, they look at the strips being empty. And I think that whether that is something that happens because of the town center and things like that. So I don't want people to look at your goals and objectives and think that that's not a priority, because I know that we've had many conversations about that. But I would just like to thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Strong. Mr. Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will try to be a little bit more linear, but I'll try not to repeat what people have already said. I'll start with a precursor. I've had the opportunity and pleasure of working with Richard in the 7 years he's been here since the day he started. I worked with the previous town manager, and I was part of the process when Mr. Montori came here. And he's been very easy to work with and communicates extremely well with. And I'll with this board, and I'll start with that. Richard weekly sends a report to this board and updates us on everything that he is currently working with, so we can understand what he's working with, and if we have any questions, he invites us to ask questions about the things that are going on currently. And they're very clear, very concise, and it's very helpful to me to keep an update. All of us here have other duties, full-time jobs that we do, so it's snapshots that we get the information, and he puts that in a very concise, easy-to-read format, and I appreciate that very much. And one of the areas that he put on his goals and objectives that I have been working with the Northern Middlesex Council of Government was the Regional Emergency Communications Center. Tewksbury and Dracut, they are the only two towns that entered into that agreement, and the center will be built in Tewksbury. And Mr. Montori has been far and above the lead in working with NIMCOG to get that to Tewksbury, and that's very important. Other towns at some point, in my opinion, will join us when we show them how well it works and what a great opportunity it is to consolidate your services and to probably save each town money, which has been the goal of many of the towns to do this. And I really appreciate all the work that you've done that and working with the NIMCOG staff to do that. And you again, taken the lead, which goes back to your leadership skills. You have been, without any doubt, a very strong leader working with this board, with your departments. You were very strong with the different managers you have that run the different departments in Tewksbury. And on a personal level, I know that you work with a number of unions, and I know I wear another hat on other days where I'm a union president, and the way you handle the different unions you work with and the fairness you work with them and the glitches that come up, and as far as the raises, contracts, the benefits, the whole package that they have to come up with to negotiate. I think through the years you've been more than fair with them, and they have done very well by you as a management person. I've sat across the table from many managers that weren't anywhere near as fair as you are, and struggled and battled with them over minutia, and you seem to be able to work through that when things come up that are sticking points that could bog down negotiations and bog down collective bargaining, and you have that skill to be able to do that, and your personal skills show that. And another area that you work closely with me and another group I work with is the Public Events and Celebration Committee. It's very difficult and complicated sometimes, the amount of things that we're trying to do and we're trying to work with, and you've done a phenomenal job of sorting through everything we're trying to work with, coordinating all the different principles that we have to work with, the fire department, police department, DBW, and you've been very forthcoming and very easy to work with, which leads to my next area about being approachable as far as community relations and different concerns and issues that come up from residents. I've had on a number of occasions, residents will contact me, email me for a couple areas that they felt they needed some extra help or the town needs to address, and I'll forward them to you, and you address them right away, and including if the person wants to come in and speak to you. I've come in with different residents for other areas to discuss that they feel that they need some push from the town to have something resolved. So I appreciate all the hard work you do, and it's a pleasure to work with you, and as I've always done, I've given you the highest marks in each of the areas, and Tewksbury is very fortunate to have you as a town manager, and I hope that you continue to do the quality job you do and stay with the community, and congratulations on another year of a good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll take all the mystery out of it. I think there's a clear theme developing, and Mr. Panelitis, you haven't offered your comments yet, but I'll go out on the limb and assume that your feedback will be in the same positive light. And I don't think that's by accident. I've spoken about this in the past, that each of us approaches this job a little bit differently. And we all come at it from a different vantage point, different backgrounds, different experience, different relationships in the community. And each of us is elected at different times. We all have had a hand in the last few years in the town manager's employment and relationship with the Board of Selectmen. 3 of us here, as David mentioned, were involved when we hired Mr. Montori initially. And I can only say, as one of those 3, that I have never been disappointed at all for that decision. And while many times in life we wish we had do-overs, this is not one of those situations as far as I'm concerned. The other comment I'll make, just opening comment, is that this is a difficult and different process because it's in the public light. And I would challenge any resident who perhaps watches this tonight or on tape. All of us have performance appraisals in our professional world. I don't know of anyone else that I personally am aware of who has to have his or her performance appraisal conducted in front of television cameras and in front of microphones. It's a personal thing to all of us. And, you know, in the greater society as a whole, very few people, other than elected officials who have a progress report, if you will, on the ballot, or in a case such as this, have all of this put out for public consumption. And there's a lot of merit to having that happen, but it is a different process. And I respect the town manager for his thoughtfulness and participation in it, not because it's required, but because he is a professional in conducting his activities. And I think this board historically should be also commended, not because I'm here. I want to commend you. I want to commend our predecessor selectmen since Mr. Montori was hired, because we changed the process to make it an open process. It wasn't always that way. And I think that's to the betterment of the town of Tewksbury, and gives the residents more insights into how we view the town manager's performance, more specifically in how we view the functioning of our town's municipal government. So I came at this review a little differently. This would be, as you noted, the 7th time or 6th time that I've considered Mr. Montori's performance. And so there's not going to be any magic or anything different than what I've said in the past, because I haven't seen any evidence that we're in a different place year over year. And to use Mrs. Stronach's word of evidence, I followed the evidence and looked at a number of points that I'll raise. But my vantage point was, after 6 or 7 years, do I see signs of stagnancy? Do I see signs of complacency? Do I see signs of disinterest? Do I see signs of going through the motions? And on each of those questions, I can unequivocally say that I have not seen one iota of a sign that those things exist. I think this town manager is highly motivated, and I think he has continued to grow in the job, which is an important consideration in my opinion, because if you don't continue to grow, if you don't feel challenged, then you will inevitably become dissatisfied, and that's when relationships begin to break down, and you begin to think about what other challenges are out there, perhaps not necessarily here in Tewksbury. So my evidence is that you, Richard, have continued to grow in the job. I think you are now at your peak effectiveness. I think you're hitting your stride, if you will, with respect to your confidence level, with respect to the clarity of your vision of where you're trying to get the community from a management perspective, and certainly from the development of focus areas. And I think back to when you first started, and it was a lot for all of us on the Board of Selectmen at the time, and probably for you as well. It was like drinking from a fire hose with respect to the issues. That's no longer the case. So you've had the ability to bring level-headedness and a calm approach to managing through stormy seas, but now have the clarity of being able to say, here's where I want to be in 6 months, or here's where I want to be in a year, or 5 years on your capital improvement plan, for example. So to me, a lot of the hard work that you've put in over the years that we've praised you for is coming to fruition now, and we're benefiting from it, and it's evidenced in what you do each and every day. I think you have built an exceptionally strong team of managers around you, and most of them have been here a while, but you have worked around filling vacancies and addressing certain restructures that you've brought to the table that, from where I sit, makes your management team a more cohesive and effective group. We saw some of that evidence tonight with both Kyle and Steve, and some of the recognition they're getting. I think that you have worked to address a number of long-standing or festering issues that pre-existed your tenure here, and in many cases the current board's tenure. For example, you dealt with and brought forward and ultimately successfully shepherded through town meeting the changes to the salary scales, the personnel policies. I'm a huge fan, as you well know, of the financial policies that have been developed and adopted by this board at your recommendation, and you are a stalwart, in my opinion, in carrying them out every day and every year. I find you to be highly professional, and I think you've approached, as David mentioned, employment-related issues, collective bargaining, labor discussions, your approach to the PEC health insurance agreements, your approach to the collective bargaining agreements, and other budget issues that impact employees and the residents of our town. I think you've been very straightforward and fair, to use David's word, in how you address that. And it would be sometimes easy to take a different tact on that, but I think you constantly and consistently keep a balance to that. I believe that from what I've witnessed, again, the evidence suggests that you have extremely high ethics, which in today's day and age should not be overlooked. And I believe that your decision-making is very solid. While no one will always agree with your decisions, I know from many of the discussions that I've personally had with you and I've witnessed that you've had with others, your decisions are well-founded and well thought out. And while there might be room to disagree, as there are in every relationship and in every decision that's made, I have no doubt that your decisions are based on sound information and well thought out. It's been mentioned, capital projects. There's a lot of spade work that goes into those, a lot of planning, a lot of execution, a lot of moving parts. Things like the multi-million-dollar water treatment plant, things like the multi-million-dollar town hall, the regional communication center that you've mentioned, are all examples of where your good management skills benefit us in the long haul, and aren't necessarily seen every single day at the present moment, but 15 years from now or 10 years from now, when those projects, such as this building here that we sit in, are completed and the town can benefit from that contribution that you've made, because we have a solid building that was well thought out and well planned, we're in a better place. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, particularly in the last couple of years, you have saved the town's taxpayers literally millions of dollars. And that should not be overlooked in terms of refinancing and consolidation of debt, and the use of our financial policies to accomplish that, to represent the community before Standard & Poor's and Moody's, to achieve 2 bond rating increases, which reduces our interest rate when we borrow. You were instrumental in creating an energy aggregation program that has saved residents substantial sums in their consumption of energy here in Tewksbury. So those things shouldn't be overlooked. Again, to use Mrs. Stronach's word of evidence, there's a lot of compelling stuff here. I will note that I don't believe, and this is a high trait in my opinion, I don't believe that you shy away from difficult decisions. In fact, people who may be concerned about approaching you and getting a no for an answer it's not necessarily about the no, it's about you're not afraid to take the position that's based on what you believe is right. And so people can disagree and form a negative opinion. They can walk away after getting a no and form a negative opinion. But I would argue that in no relationship should every answer be yes. So for you to take the position that isn't popular, for you to take the position that may run counter to what people expect or want, whether they be an individual resident or a group here in town, or maybe even sometimes this board, I think to your credit, again, is because built on the fact that you are well-reasoned and well thought out. And another trait that I admire in your performance is that above all else, you take responsibility for all of it. I have repeatedly heard you say when someone on your team may have dropped the ball, that it's my job to take care of it. It's my responsibility. And to me, that's an enormously positive trait as a leader of this organization. That's a $100+ million organization to step up and assume that burden of leadership and do it with the professionalism that you do. So I feel very positive and bullish about our budget, despite your caution. I don't want to mix message here, but I'm of the same mindset relative to your caution, but I'm bullish about the fact that the process is better than it ever has been before. There's clarity to the vision of what we want to accomplish, and you set that tone, and you're very clear with respect to what your department managers should be presenting for a budget. You're clear with respect to what you have available with respect to our school partners relative to the budget, and you're clear in messaging that consistently as the budget develops to our community. So from where I sit, the budget process continues to be improved each year in incremental ways, and we're blessed for that. So, you know, David ended his comments with, we're fortunate to have you here, and I certainly would agree wholeheartedly with that statement. You know, I hope that we can continue to keep you in the mode of dissatisfaction with the state of affairs, because I think when the day comes where you feel as though there's nothing left to do, then you're going to move to something else, because it's clear to me that you're driven to achieve success, you're driven to resolve issues and problems, and you're driven to make the place better than when you set foot here. And so far, you're doing all of those, so I hope that we can continue to work with you to accomplish that.
Thank you.
Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, so most of what I was going to say, you guys already said. And I did submit it in writing, so it will be part of the minutes. I'll just highlight a couple of areas, that some of which will duplicate some of my colleagues, some of it might be a little different. First, on managerial skills, I appreciate a very realistic timeline and set of milestones. You don't overpromise and you don't underpromise. The process is well thought out and meets reasonable expectations, and that can be underestimated as how important that is as we go through very big projects. Everybody mentioned, or many people mentioned, the weekly reports, which continue to be a highlight and keep us all up to date as to what's going on. And on a similar note, I'll note what Mr. Johnson was just talking about, the notion that while you continue to in a very proficient way manage the day-to-day aspects of our governance, our municipal government, you're always keeping an eye on how we can get it better and how we can improve that process. And I really, truly appreciate that, and how that then eventually leads to efficiencies, savings for our taxpayers, et cetera. On the budget, I think very little has to be said more about that. I will say that, that I appreciate your conservative approach, small c, conservative approach regarding the budget, and and as Mr. Johnson also said, those are consistent with the policies that have been enacted by this board. So again, that pairing of both the priorities of the board and the priorities of the town manager, and I think together that has allowed us to now be in a place where, should something happen with the state budget, or should something else happen that really sets us back as far as what we expect for funding, we'll be able to handle that. Whereas that might not have been, I probably could not have said that 6 or 8 years ago, perhaps. And so I think that's a credit to you. I'll come back to that one. So on community relations, I think the main thing is that you're respectful, even in the face of complaints and criticisms, even when those complaints and criticisms are sometimes not very respectful. And that's hard to do. All of us have been in that position to receive an angry call or an angry email. And of course, the first reaction for some of us is to sort of go back at that person, and I'm consistently amazed at your ability to not go that route and to keep the high road in those situations. As far as your personal qualities, I'll echo my colleagues regarding your high level of integrity and honesty when it comes to dealing not only with us, but our residents and everybody that you interact with. In my interactions and at times that I've been with either state delegation or other municipal elected officials or town managers or other professionals in and around our region, there's a consistent message that not only is it our opinion that we're lucky that you're here working for us, but they consider that we are lucky that you're here working for us, and would happily steal you from us if they had the opportunity, which we hopefully won't ever let happen. So I'll finish on the direction and supervision of department heads. I think overall you strike an excellent balance of allowing your leadership to manage their individual departments, do their job, but still maintaining that consistent ethic of integrity and oversight, knowing what's going on and being able to direct where necessary, but let them do their job where appropriate. So I will add one area of growth that I hope to see in the future, and that's the increased utilization of our new assistant town manager. I think there are times where there are items or subjects that you could delegate, and like some of us, you probably choose to just do it yourself. Some of us have that response, and I think you certainly have that, where a problem is put in front of you, and your first reaction is to sort of just jump on that. And I think there are times where that could be delegated, and I hope to see you do that more often, particularly to Mr. Sadwick, and so that there's a balance between subjects that actually require your full attention and those that could be handled either by Mr. Sadwick or even other members of your staff. He is award-winning after all, so we should take full advantage of that. So that's all I have to say. I think everybody basically said very similar things. I think we're very, I know I'm personally happy to work with you on a day-to-day basis and enjoy our conversations and the discussions that go beyond the sort of where are we with the budget, and appreciate the fact that you are not thinking just about whether the numbers add up at the end, but that how do we improve that going forward. So with that, I'll allow you to respond.
Yeah, no, first of all, to each of you, thank you very much. It's very much appreciated. And, you know, each of you have touched upon items that before tonight I was thinking about, and as we were discussing things tonight, I was thinking, you know, we do a lot of good things. And when I say we, I mean this board, the department heads, the other boards I work with. But I also know that we have a ways to go in some areas, and we can make improvements. I have a very high standard for myself, as well as the department heads and the people who work in each of those departments, and they know that, and they work hard, and they meet that standard. I was thinking, as I was going through the budget process, and I've met with most departments, I have a couple more to do, but as I was reviewing it and starting to put it together, and over the next couple of weeks when it's crunch time and I'm putting it together, I thought to myself, you know, we're in a good place. From when I first started, and I can still remember the interview in this room, with the three of you and Scott and Doug, and there's a lot less light. Couldn't hear as well, but I can remember that night, and I can remember starting here in my office upstairs, where we were and where we are now, and that's a credit to all the people that work here, and a credit to this board and the people that served in this board before that. But we're in a good place, and the team that is in place right now, we had a department heads meeting yesterday, and I was looking around the table. It's a good team. I'm real comfortable with the people that are in place, and I think we have some things to improve upon, and I think we have some challenges ahead of us, but they're good challenges, and I think they're challenges that we're all looking forward to. And as Todd mentioned about being complacent in anything we do in life, I need to make sure that that doesn't happen to myself or to the department heads or to even the five of you, to make sure we're always being challenged and to want to do better. And right now that we are still being challenged. When I think about the town center project, when I think about the new elementary school of schools, the DPW facility, the town, the center fire station, we're coming up on projects that are going to define this community, and that's exciting. And I'm hoping we get the support of the residents to do them. I look forward to being part of that process, being part of those projects, because it'll shape the future of this community, and I think that is just extremely exciting, and we should be excited about that. So I look forward to another year of hopefully success, addressing major problems that might come up. I thank each of you for the support, the residents for the support, the department heads that work with me. And we have a lot more to do, and each of the comments I take seriously, and anywhere we can improve, I'm open to suggestions. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, I think we can safely move on to the next agenda item, much to your happiness. So that it would be the town manager section of the meeting, and we have some license renewals to address.
Yes, I just want to pass out an update from the last board meeting. We had some licenses that we held because of outstanding taxes, and most of the license holders have paid their outstanding fees, with the exception of 3. And there was also one license held because of a zoning issue. So what I'd like to have the board do is to approve all of the licenses, with the exception of MC Rad Realty. We'll come back to that. But approve all the other licenses, even the ones that still have outstanding taxes, because they're scheduled for hearing in January, so we can deal with it then. So if you can do that, and then I'll come back to MC Rad Realty.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the licenses as submitted with the exception of MC Rad Realty.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the licenses in front of us with the one noted exception. Do I hear a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second to approve the licenses in front of us. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well.
Thank you. In regard to MC Rad Realty, there was a zoning issue that was brought up, that the operation was not in compliance with the special permit. I spoke to senior town council about this, and because we need more clarity on what those violations are, and because we need to properly notify the individual and have a hearing on those issues, which is outlined in the special permit, I'd ask the board to renew MC Rad Realty's license for 3 months, and then we'll revisit this issue to ensure that any zoning violations are resolved, and if they're resolved, then we can renew it for the remainder of the year. And that's on advice from our senior town council.
I'll make,
Can I ask a question through the chairman? I know this was brought to us by the planning board. Were they made aware of this?
They weren't because senior town council and myself had the discussion today. We were waiting for some more clarity on the violations. But that's why we wanted to do it for 3 months. It gives them an opportunity to go back into the special permit, notify them of what the violations are, that they have an opportunity to come before the planning board or the selectmen in a public hearing to discuss them and either resolve them or not. But this at least gives us that opportunity. Do it for 3 months, and it gives at least everyone the opportunity to be more specific on what the issues are.
I would just like that, you know, if we do approve this for 3 months, that we should send some sort of notification to the planning board that we have made this motion, but we're still under review, as they suggested to us. So.
I will do that tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes,
to
Mr.
kind
Johnson.
of follow on Mr. Crabman's questions, the policing or review of any zoning issues or permit issues, to my knowledge, would largely rest with the planning board. Is there a role for the Board of Selectmen on those issues? Or is it really the jurisdiction of the planning board?
It's it would rest with the planning board, with the building commissioner ensuring that enforcement is in place. They would notify the board if there is any issues, and that's when you would take action on the license. So we just need, again, to get be more specific on what the violations are, if they do exist, and then just follow the process within the special permit.
Any further discussion? Otherwise, we have a recommendation to renew the license for MC Rad Realty for 3 months. Our motion relative to that?
I'll make a motion to approve the license for a period of 3 months until these areas are resolved.
Do we need a hard date as far as the expiration of that license? Are we suggesting the end of March, or?
Let me just look at the calendar quickly. I'd go to March 31st.
I'll modify that request to approve the zoning till March 31st.
We have a motion to approve the license through March 31st of 2017. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well.
Thank you. The next item, I just want to pass another document out to the board.
So, Mr. Chairman, just
Yes,
before
please.
you move on, Mr. Montori, so that would leave us with 3 entities who presumably we're going to schedule public hearings. We've already established that date and time, but those entities corresponded with them, I assume, a couple of times?
Letters went out to everyone that was on the original list. We'll follow up with those that paid to inform them that there'll be no hearing, and the ones that are still outstanding will be still having a hearing. So we'll follow that up this week.
So you'll continue to push on that with respect to them. And
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know how my colleagues feel about it, but at this point, if we're going to schedule public hearings, eventually these names will be made known. So my view is that at this juncture, the public should know who is not paying
I
their
believe, correct me if I'm wrong, those that looked at, have a draft of the minutes, but I believe we had, when we set the times, because we did set hearings for January 10th, I believe I did read them off at 5-minute intervals, including the names of the businesses. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was my recollection.
You may have, but I think you read a larger roster than what currently now exists.
Right, so we do have people that, we have organizations that are set for hearings that now have no need for those hearings. So how best to handle that, either we could cancel those hearings, or simply at the time of that meeting just indicate that that hearing is no longer necessary, and then address other issues until we come to the time for the next establishment. What?
So that's going to be a long meeting.
Well, we did schedule them at 5-minute intervals, so that if
Yeah,
there's only 2 or 3 left.
Right now, there's 3 left. And we can mention who they are if you want.
So perhaps maybe the easiest thing is to set new times relative to these three,
If you'd like to do that, absolutely.
and cancel and essentially modify our vote from 2 weeks ago and set the new.
Well, your vote was, if I remember, that they would start at 7 and they'd be every 5 minutes in the order of the list.
Right.
So you didn't really even add names to that. So, and we said if people pay, then we would adjust the
Right.
list. So right now, you're down to 3 that would start at 7 o'clock and do 5-minute intervals for each of the 3, so 15, 20 minutes. If you want, Mr. Chairman, I can just read the names quickly of who
The
they are.
amount outstanding, because
Yeah,
we're
it's-
talking in the aggregate about $10,000 or $11,000 in total.
So we're talking about Lowell Transportation, and with real estate taxes of $6,918.92, personal property at $265.27, Wings Used Auto Parts, personal property at $207.06, and Wendy's Old Fashioned Hamburgers, personal property of $3,237.61. There was one other license on here that had outstanding taxes that we pulled off this list because they closed for the winter. So we'll revisit that at a later date. That's it.
And I would just like to note that the reason these 3 companies are still on the list is because we have changed the bylaw. So that's another reason, because they are not within over a year, because we just changed that.
That's a
Is that
good point. If this was under the old bylaw and under the old state statute, this group probably wouldn't even be on the list. But since we did change the bylaw and the state statute changed to say that anything outstanding for any period of time raises a red flag, these are outstanding just for FY17, which is since July.
Yep, I just want to make sure that people
That's a good point.
understand that.
That the taxes owed are from FY17.
Yes.
And so we have those 3 at 7, 7:05, and 7:10 then. Should we take a vote to validate those new times, given that we did vote relative to the other times? So I'll ask for a motion actually to set hearing dates and times on January 10th at 7 p.m. for Lowell Transportation, 7:05 for Wings Used Auto Parts, and 7:10 for Wendy's Old Fashioned Hamburgers.
I'll offer that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second
And
that.
a second, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. So those hearings now supplant the previous date and time that we had given for the other establishments. Okay, Mr. Montori, any next
Yes.
item? Anything else on the, I think we're...
I have one other.
Set on licenses?
Set on licenses, which is good. The next item is in regard to traffic speed limit signage on, it says Shawshene Street, but actually it entails more than that. I don't need, this is not requiring any action. I just passed a memo or a letter that was sent to me from the DPW regarding this issue. And this is more informational because we have done, we have some press coming out on this issue, and I wanted to let the board know ahead of time what was happening. And essentially, I'm just going to go from this letter as somewhat. Back in July of this year, the Department of Public Works was made aware that some of the roadways within the town were posted with speed limits that did not match the approved special speed regulations that we have. These regulations were approved by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, and they were adopted by the town sometime between 1954 and 2003. It's a pretty broad time. In order to correct the matter of the incorrect speed limit signs were removed in July of this past year, of 2016. And the DPW has been preparing to install the correct speed limit signs along 5 roads within the town. Those roads included Andover Street, East Street, North Street, Shawshene Street, and Whipple Road. The corrected speed limit signs will be installed starting early in the week of December 26th. So people are going to see different speed limits than they're currently used to. They may think that we've increased speeds or decreased speeds for whatever reason, but what we're doing is we're complying with the regulations. The DPW is of the opinion that the speeds mandated by the special speed regulations may not be appropriate for the volume of traffic density of development, roadway geometry, and driver behavior for the present day. So in an effort to correct the issue, the DPW received funding at special town meeting in October to perform a speed zoning study on those 6 roads. Again, Andover Street, East Street, Livingston Street, North Street, Shawshene Street, and Whipple Road. The purpose of the speed zone study is to determine the safe speed limits for the subject roadways based on the current vehicle travel speeds in roadway conditions. The speed zone study is expected to be completed in the February-March timeframe. The results of the speed zone study will determine if any of the roadway segments merit a lower speed limit than mandated by the current special speed regulation. The DPW will make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen for that a town petition be sent to Mass DOT for their approval to lower those speed limits. So as we mentioned when we were at town meeting, right now the process to change speed limits along these roads would be conduct a speed study, petition Mass Highway to approve lowering speed limits, and then we can do that. Without that study, without that approval, we can't do it. We did have 2 articles at town meeting to accept new state statutes that would allow the board to do that, but those failed. We hope to bring those back in May if the board is comfortable with doing that, but we can talk about that at a future meeting. But right now, what I wanted to do is let the board know and let the residents know, and there'll be an article coming out in the newspaper, that they will see new speed limit signs going up. That's only to be in compliance with the special speed regulations, but we are conducting a study to put the proper signage up in the future. And that's all I want to make the board aware of.
So just to clarify, at some point in time, after the town approved those special speed regulations, sometime in that small window of 54 through 2003, after which, at some point, the speed limits were changed.
Just changed.
Just changed.
No data behind them, just changed.
And as a result, the new signs going up are simply to bring us back in compliance with regulations that this community had already approved and are part of state statute.
Special permit, yes.
And so we're just simply getting ourselves back under the appropriate regulations.
Bring us into proper compliance. And because we think some of the speed limits that are in the regulations need to be updated because of changes in the roadways and the volume of traffic, that's why we're doing this study, and so residents may see them change again.
And just one more clarification, the 2 articles that failed at town meeting would have allowed us to make those changes independent of the speed study.
We still would have probably done a speed study, but we would not have needed Mass DOT approval.
Thank you.
Now, a speed study would not have been required, but we still, because of best practices, would have undertaken a speed study.
But would not have required Mass DOT approval.
Correct. It would have saved us a step.
Just so that we all understand what was shot down in October.
May I ask one question
Mr.
through you,
Johnson,
Mr.
please.
Chairman, to the town manager? Can you refresh our recollection as to what the approximate cost of a speed zone study actually is
I think we appropriated somewhere in the area of $15,000 to $20,000.
for just these 6 streets? And when we go back to the approved speeds that potentially go back to 1954, are we looking at like horse and buggy speeds, or are we looking at speeds from Model T Fords?
Yeah, I'm not sure what
Are we talking
I'm
about
not-
today's vehicle?
No, it's definitely not, it's probably less than today's vehicles, but somewhere above horse and buggy.
So, yeah.
And you know, I think residents may also think we're doing this because we want to have lower speed, there might be lower speed limits than normal, or they will be, that we're doing this for speed traps, that we're going to do this, and now we're going to have speed traps out there, and we're going to just do this for tickets. That's not the case at all. We're following what our permit says those streets should be. So,
Have you considered maybe a reverse phone call to apprise residents of these changes and maybe using some of the DPW signs to alert residents of speed changes on those?
we actually haven't, but I can talk to them, DPW director and police about that tomorrow.
Kind of follows on the commentary earlier tonight about community communication.
Although I do occasionally get complaints that we overuse the reverse 911 things that are not truly 911.
Yeah, maybe we don't need that, but use the DPW.
No,
sign.
I honestly leave it to the
Yep.
town manager and his staff to determine whether it's appropriate or not. But it's a good idea to make sure the communication gets out there. Any other comments or questions
Yeah, I
relative to
just
this?
have one comment through the chair to the town manager. A couple of these signs, I've received a couple of phone calls on a couple of these signs, why the signs were being removed, what was going on. And from what I understand, the speed limits were lowered in a number of areas, and they're going to go back up. So I'm sure we're going to get some concerns on that. I believe from just having conversations with people that there was complaints from residents that the speed limit is too high along certain areas. So we're going to go back to what that speed limit is. So we are going to raise it. So I'm sure we're going to get some residents that are going to see those signs out there saying, why are you raising the speed limit?
Correct.
We are not raising the speed limit. We're putting it to what was approved through the traffic study at the time. I'm sure there was probably some legitimate reasons why they were lowered. Maybe something had changed out there. Maybe there's a school bus crossing. Maybe there's a business that's been put up. Maybe there's more residents that are along that way, and now there's sight distance issues, and those type of things all play or have effects on what goes on out there. So once again, I kind of wish that this had passed at town meeting, because these are something that, once again, there was a thought that the reason that we were trying to pass that was going through was to, once again, people thought that there was, speed traps and things like that. But I get calls quite frequently from people saying, my kids are trying to get to school and they're running for their life, trying to get across these roads, and if this had passed at town meeting, instead of us waiting this time, that we're going to have to submit this study, send it to DOT, hope that they're going to approve it, because this is not guaranteed that they will approve it. I've seen speed studies go into the state, and the state has said no, because of the way the trajectory, the surrounding streets, and what else is associated with it, that they want traffic flowing, because every speed sign out there has a residual effect of what goes on. You stop traffic in one place, they start using side streets. And so I'm glad we did the study. I think it's going to be helpful of what's going on, and we'll get the streets much safer. These streets are very well traveled, so I'm glad we did this. But I just want to make the residents aware that we're going back to what the state says these streets are supposed to be. And so when you see some of these roads increased, traffic may pick up in certain areas. I'm glad we did the study to hopefully make it safer for everybody getting across these roadways.
No, that's a good point. And just to follow up on your earlier question, and I just looked at it, we appropriated $20,000 for the study.
Okay, any further commentary? This was just a point of information.
This
There's
is a
no
point of
action
information, yes.
required for us. Okay. Any other items for you, Mr.
Just one
Montour?
last, I just want to, just because I just saw it come across, because I think it's always good to point this out. I just saw a press release coming out from the police chief that, for all of us who know, the TD Bank was robbed yesterday, and they, from the hard work of the department, the detectives in the offices, they arrested somebody. So that was great news. So I just want to pass that on. And as usual, great work by the chief and all the members of his department.
Okay. Nothing more. All right. So next item on our agenda is the outstanding minutes, and I understand we're not quite ready to review these. We'll take them up on January 10th. Is that correct, Mrs. Stronach? Okay. And that leaves us with board member reports, and I will start here on my right with Mr. Kratman.
Well, since our last meeting, the Economic Development Committee and the Beautification Committee did not meet. They're not going to meet until the middle of January, so I really have no committee meetings. The one thing I do want to bring up is Last week, we had the town ran a meeting about the intersection of Salem and South, and there was like 50 or 60 people, residents that showed up. I was glad seeing everybody that showed up to the thing. Everyone seemed to be in the same agreement that we understand that that intersection is one of the worst intersections in the states for accidents. There was a number of residents that showed up that were in accidents in that location. There was a lot of police officers that lived by there that seemed to be the first responders because they hear the crashes. Myself, living around the corner, I hear it all summer. I'll be in the yard with the kids and I hear screeching brakes as people are going through that intersection and just hoping I don't hear the crash that comes afterwards. I'm sure everybody wants that to be done tomorrow, but there's a project in place where there's going to be, a study put into place. There's already been a roadway, speed study, everything that was put into that. There's a 25% going in, so we are moving forward with that. And I just want to thank all the residents that showed up and thank the town manager and the town engineer for putting on that public meeting. I understand there was another meeting on East Street that was held for the public.
It was.
And that was well attended also as well.
Yes.
So I just want to thank the town manager for, once again, keeping the public informed of what's going on with these projects as they're coming forward. We get a number of projects that will be moving to improve our roadways in the next couple of years, and it was a very well attended meeting, so that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Kratman. Mrs. Stronach.
I have a couple of things. First of all, the superintendent is going before the Mass School Building Association tomorrow with the possible configurations for the elementary school project. Because the meeting is tomorrow, we are going to be meeting on Thursday, the 22nd at 6 o'clock in this room, in this hall. I think it's in the small room. So we should hopefully have some information from the superintendent on then. I know that there's a lot of talk, but right now, everything in schematic design is out on the table, and there's, no closed options. So I just want to make sure people understand that. I have been appointed on the local housing partnership, and unfortunately, since my appointment, we have not been able, actually since July, we have not been able to meet because of conflicting schedules with various members. I would respectfully, Mr. Chairman, ask the town manager to have the assistant town manager delegate the work to the assistant town manager to work with the chairman of the local housing partnership, Steve Dekoff, to come up with maybe a new board structure that we can look at, so that can be a more productive board rather than not being able to, and people feeling, oh, couldn't do it this month, I can do it next month. I want our volunteers to be engaged, so if that would be okay with you.
I think that's a good idea. We've done that in the past, and I think it's a good idea.
I know it's similar to what you did with the Green Committee,
Green Committee,
correct?
yep.
And then Joan Dunleavy passed away in between our last two meetings, and as you well know, Joan was the first selectwoman in the town of Tewksbury, and a very dear friend of mine, as well as a great advocate for this town. And I would just like to just take a moment to recognize her work and thank her for her contributions, and on a personal level, thank her for her assistance with supporting me and being a good thought partner for me. So I'd just like to say that. And then wish everybody happy holidays. Tis the season, and whatever you celebrate, I hope you enjoy it with your friends and your family, and that everybody drives safe so that they can spend that time with their family. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Well said, thank you. Mr. Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick item. The Lowell Regional Transit Authority met last Thursday for their last meeting of the year, and again, I want to thank them for their generous donation for a van to the senior center that Mr. Montori mentioned earlier. One item of note at the meeting, Sal Lopoli from the owner of Sal's Pizza showed up at the last meeting for a land transfer agreement he had with the City of Lowell and Lowell Regional Transit Authority. I was disappointed they didn't bring any pizza with them, but they made up for it, and they had a buffet afterwards. They have a buffet at the end of the year, so everything worked out great. That's all I have. And again, like as Mr. Strong said, everybody have a safe and happy holiday, and I'm glad that we're coming to the end of the year. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
I'll just offer one comment. We gave the town manager some very positive feedback, but I'd also like to, at the end of the calendar year, take the opportunity to thank all of our town employees for their hard work and contributions to making town government work through 2016. Our residents are fortunate to have them serving them in the various capacities that make everything work day to day. With that, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, I only have a few items myself. Like others, many of our committees have not been meeting. Our Town Center Master Plan Committee has not met. There is intention after our last public meeting to, once we receive the final report from our consultant in January, to then come in front of this board, to go in front of the Finance Committee to discuss the financial implications of that plan, and then also the Planning Board, who did help provide some funding for the additional work that we've recently done with regards to the planning and the visioning relative to the town center. So the committee will be meeting to plan for those, to review the final plan, and then also bring those to the various boards I just mentioned. I would also like to note another notable passing, Miko Kaufman, who is, many of us are aware of, a world-renowned sculptor who has some very famous works here. We're blessed to have, I think, 4 or 5 of his works in town, including Water, of course, the most famous one here to the, just outside the hall here, and also Muster down by the South Fire Station. There's and I can't remember the name of the one in front of the Methodist Church. And so just the work that remains from his many years, and a resident here of Tewksbury, a treasure that we've lost, yet another one in 2016, and a sad passing for all of us. I will also just reiterate again what Mr. Johnson talked about, the hard work that our staffs in all of our departments, the department heads, but in particular, I'd like to mention Janine and Helen, who work in our office, the hard work that they do, helping us with agendas and all of our packets and all of the information that we need in order to do our work. They keep us on our toes and keep us ready to do our work, and I'd like to acknowledge their work for that. And then I'll again wish everybody safe holidays. This is our last meeting of 2016. Many of us are happy to see 2016 finally go by, hoping for a good 2017. I hope everybody has a good Christmas, happy Hanukkah, whatever we individually celebrate, and then of course a happy New Year. And then we'll all return here for January 10th for our next meeting. So with that, unless there's any other comments, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. We are adjourned at 9:14.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bridget.